In this final video of mixing a tropical house dance song, we're going to take our entire mix and process it through the mix bus. On the mix bus, we have the following plugins. We're using the Vintage EQ 4K Black, the Lang PEQ2, which has been one of my favorites, especially for the top end, and the Gyratec X compressor as our final mix bus limiter. So that should be a night and day difference of what you hear when the plugins are on. And to my ears, it just sounds fuller, brighter, punchier, and more powerful of a mix. So let me walk you through some of these settings. First up, we're using the VEQ 4K. The reason I chose this EQ is because you can be very surgical with the bands. Whereas some of the other vintage EQ plugins, you're very limited to the bandwidth. You might have a few adjustments, but the 4K just really gives you that flexibility and versatility to fine-tune those frequencies and remove whatever you don't want. All right, so we've done exactly that. In fact, let me go ahead and play it from the start, and then we'll go ahead and sweep these frequencies. Check it out. So by using a little bit of EQ on each one of these bands, we're gently boosting the lows using a bell. So we're basically giving a little bit of hint to the sub lows. We're cutting some of the low mids where some of the instruments overlap and mask the rhythmic instruments, making it a little bit muddy. So we're dipping that a little bit. We're also doing the same for the high mids, removing any harshness. And then lastly, we're boosting around 5K with the bell curve just to sweeten it up. This is another way to create a smile EQ. But again, we're using very small amounts, and those small amounts end up making a big difference in the end. All right, next up, we're going to be a little bit more generous. And what I mean by that is that we're going to boost up the high frequency boost at 10K. Now, this is really where I love this Lang EQ2 plugin. Check it out. So with the Lang EQ, we're using a generous boost on the high end. And this just really makes the track sound nice and sparkle and almost new, you know, when it's nice and shiny and crisp. Now, when I changed the high frequency boost to 12K, I was getting a little bit more of the hi-hat and the sizzle of the claps. But with 10K, I was able to get a little bit more of the brightness and color from the other instruments as well. So I felt that that was a better setting. We're using the bandwidth all the way on broad. And then we're using one notch of boost at 60 hertz. Now with the low end on this EQ, you want to be really careful because a little bit goes a long way. So if I change it up to there, it starts to get a little bit too much. All right, so just one notch did it for me. Okay, and lastly, we're going to use the Gyratec X for compression. Let's check it out. So that's all the time that we have for this video. I hope you learned a lot. I'll see you in the next one.